I've worked at a Thai restaurant for a few years as a dishwasher. That was my job on paper, but over time I started to pick up more duties between the time of people quitting and getting hired. It got to the point where I could cook anything off the menu if needed. During a hectic shift one night, I helped pack some takeout orders and handed them over to the waiting DoorDash drivers. My boss spoke in broken English, but is one of the funniest guys I've ever known. It was hard to get stressed on busy nights like that with him forgetting words, making his jokes 10 times funnier. Takeout orders flew out of the door, and we tried to keep up with the rush inside of the restaurant. A snag hit when we ran out of cooked pork belly. One last order of pork belly bowl needed to be sent out right away, or else we would lose our driver to a different order and risk a bad rating. I told my boss we should send a message out or outright cancel the order. Instead, he placed the last strip of pork belly in the takeout order and sent it off. The bowl should have at least 5 pieces, not one. We honestly didn't have time to send a message and deal with a single order, with 10 waiting on the kitchen. I hated the idea of sending out a meal lacking the main ingredient, but got so busy the rest of the night I totally forgot about it. We received no complaints or negative reviews that night, so we put it out of our minds. The next night was just as busy. At least my boss cooked extra pork belly in the morning so we wouldn't run out in the middle of the rush again. At the end of the night, I volunteered to clean up and lock up the restaurant. He trusted me enough to do so. I liked doing the end of shift cleanup. My apartment was in walking distance, unlike everyone else who needed the last bus home. I put on some music and got to work putting the kitchen back in order after our 2 long nights of running around. I just finished up and shut off most of the lights, ready to leave. The kitchen was dark, with only the exit light showing the way out. I double checked to see if my keys were in my bag, but they were hanging off my shoulder, and I was about to take a step forward towards the door when I heard something. I felt positive someone just took a few steps inside the kitchen, and that was odd. I knew for a fact everyone had left. Did the owner come back in and just wanted to check the stock and I didn't just hear him over my music? Hello? Boss? I called out in the dark room, my voice shaking slightly. I strained to hear, thinking I was just imagining things. Just when I went to move in again, I heard something behind me. A sound of fabric moving. 2 massive hands came out of nowhere to wrap long bony fingers around my arms from behind. I jumped and let out a small squeak of fear, unable to move from the shock. I wanted to run, and yet my body refused to listen. Those hands looking human, but the black skin and pointed fingers simply couldn't be anything besides a creature from a nightmare. I wished this was a robbery instead of whatever stood at my back. The sound of fabric came again. A hot puff of breath moved my hair near my ears, and the back of my neck crawled. What the hell was this thing going to do? I didn't really want to get torn apart because I stayed late at work. It could do anything to me and no one will find out until the morning. Hell, if I didn't leave any traces behind, no one would ever find out I'd just been killed. My body shook as so many gruesome images came through my mind, and I silently prayed for it to go away. I ordered extra pork belly, but only got one. The voice came right next to my ear. I shuddered from it being so close. It sounded low and hoarse and impossible to pin down a gender if this monster had one. I couldn't believe I might be killed because we sent out one order short. I searched my mind, trying to think of anything in order to save my life. When I didn't respond fast enough, it spoke again. Do you have more in today? It whispered. I risked turning my head slightly to see a face of pure darkness with a mouth, showing rows of white teeth shining in the darkness. Yes? I said cautiously. It removed a hand on my shoulder and dug around the darkness of its body for a moment. It looked like a tall figure dressed in some sort of black hooded fabric. The creature is so large it couldn't really fit inside the small kitchen. It pulled out its hand with long deadly claws and held out a closed fist. I carefully held my hands out to accept whatever it was offering. Some bills and change dropped down into my expecting hands, and I stood frozen to the spot, confused and scared as hell. 1 pork belly bowl, please. Extra pork belly. It whispered, with a wide grin that caused my body to shake again. I looked around the empty kitchen, not expecting that kind of request. Now? I asked, knowing that was a dumb question. It tightened the grip on my arm to the point where it hurt a little. This thing could tear me apart without any effort and made that fact clear. Now, please. It did not need to repeat itself. I nodded, shoving the money in my pocket, not even checking the amount. My arm was released and I hurried along to get started on the cooking. I knew how to make everything and we already had most of it prepped. I just needed to cook the rice. I flicked on a light and heard a small hiss. The monster nowhere in sight when the light came on, but I didn't trust it left for good. That was confirmed when I took out the lettuce and heard it ask to not have any in its bowl. I hurried along, warming up what was needed, and finished making the largest pork belly bowl the restaurant had ever seen. After all, we only had large rice pots. It was easier to make a large bowl. I made sure to load the bowl up with the desired meat, wondering how I'll explain the missing amount to my boss. When everything was ready, I looked around, trying to find the monster, wondering if I just imagined the whole thing. Light, please, came a voice somewhere in the room. I quickly went over and turned off the kitchen lights again, and expecting the massive creature I'd seen before to show up. Instead, a small thing appeared at the counter, sitting in a chair I took from the restaurant. It looked exactly like the dark creature from before, just smaller. Only 4 feet tall, if that. Hands extremely small, and tiny feet dangling off the chair. Another empty bowl, please. It spoke in a softer voice that sounded much like a child. But I knew it was still the creature that could kill me, so I listened. I set a bowl down on the counter, and the small thing went to work filling it with some of its meal, making a smaller pork belly bowl. Tiny hands pushed the second bowl towards me and patted on the counter where it sat. Then the creature started to dig into the meal, feet kicking happily. This thing was sharing the meal I just made. After coming all the way here and requesting the food after hours to put it aside for some to share, I still felt some fear towards whatever broke into the restaurant, but it was making it really hard to be overly worried for my life. I didn't eat dinner yet, so I took the bowl and started to nibble on it, keeping my eyes on the creature. It ate fast, but also acted as if the food was too hot, which makes sense. If it ordered the food, any meal would have cooled down by the time it reached the creature. This might be the first time it ate so soon after the meal had been finished cooking. Halfway through the meal, it placed some more change on the counter requesting an egg. We saw boiled eggs ahead of time, so I grabbed one from the fridge. They normally warm up while sitting in the rest of the hot dish. The monster didn't seem to mind the cold egg. In fact, it hesitated before placing more change down requesting another egg. By the time it was down to the last bite of meat, the monster looked like it struggled to finish. I already finished my own and got started on washing the bowl. It didn't make any sense to waste some takeout containers. I looked over my shoulder, not seeing the creature in the dark. I let out a very high-pitched scream when I felt something touch my leg. The thing had gotten off its chair and held out its empty bowl to be washed. My heart slowed back down to normal, and I accepted the dish from those tiny hands. With everything washed and out of the way, I wanted to leave as fast as possible. A tugging came to my pants, and I regretfully reached down to take the creature's small hand so we could leave. I found it didn't walk fast enough, so I needed to pick it up. It wasn't pleasant holding the creature. It may be the size and shape of a small child, but it felt like it was just meat wrapped in the fabric without any bones in its body. Like holding a room temperature pork roast wrapped in plastic. We made it outside, but I was now left holding a dark creepy as hell monster in my arms, unsure of what to do next. It's late. No more buses. I can walk you home, it offered. The small thing slipped from my arms, and the body shifted into a taller shape, almost looking like an adult robed in a Halloween costume. The feet still appeared far too small to support the tall body. No, it's fine. I can walk home alone just fine, I said, hands out in front, trying to refuse the offer as politely as possible. It's not safe. Monsters come out at night. The thing responded in the same low tone that caused my shoulders to tense. After a few seconds passed between us, I thought I heard a laugh. It took a few steps away and found a shadow. the body slowly sinking into the darkness to leave. I couldn't help but ask a question that had been bothering me. How do you, even have money or an address to buy food? I asked, staring at the smile mouth that paused to face me. I have a job, you know. Being this man-eating monster is just a hobby. Best not to go into all that though. Being a monster is fun, but eating people can be such a hassle. Hobby should be enjoyed, right? Anyway, I prefer eating takeout, but I'll change my mind if someone ever cheaps out on my pork belly again. The dark shape said with a smile, never leaving its face. Noted, I replied with a dry throat. I watched it leave in a dark shadow, praying we would never cross paths again. The next day, I told my boss I made myself a meal to take home and gave him the money for what had been used. He didn't care at all, and even told me I could take home a free meal by the end of the night if needed. At least, that was one bullet dodged. After the incident, we started to get 2 orders a week of pork belly bowls with extra pork and extra eggs. We ran into being low on pork again, and I stopped my boss from sending out the order short. I made the effort to call the number listed, only to get a text in response saying they would be fine with waiting for more pork to be made, or substitute with an egg or two. The owner being so busy, he let me deal with the order. I finally got it sent out, and we got a 5-star review later that night. Honestly, I'd rather keep my life than the reviews. I really need to go back to school and get out of a job that deals with customers. You never really know who you'll be serving.